Indeed.
I'm officially recording.
All righty.
All right, ladies. So thank you. So I'm gonna
Having
let
us.
y'all introduce yourselves because I want people to actually know who you are instead of me just telling them your names. So for everybody joining us tonight, my name is Wendy Whitmore. I have a private practice in Upland, California. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. But I feel like that's just kind of part of who I am. I really feel like I'm community at heart. And so when everything started going on, this has turned into a series. It wasn't meant to be a series, but I was just so frustrated as a mom. And I specifically started thinking about being the mom of a Black boy. And so the first talk I did was with my son. Shout out to Miss Tori for Iman for moderating that. The second talk I did was with my two girls. Shout out to Miss Jewel Patterson. She's a part of COPE, but she is also the fellow for Truth Healing Evolution. She was a moderator for that. And so a lot of people were asking about when I was going to do the next one. And I thought, you know what, it'd be really great to do it from the mom perspective. So I brought two dope mamas on here with me. So dope mama number one, take it away. Introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, everyone. My name is Felicia Jones. I'm a mom of one son, 17-year-old, and I'm actually the auntie mama of a 27-year-old who's living up in Sacramento and is an adult, but he's still my baby too. And I work for COPE, Congregations Organized for Prophetic Engagement, as the Associate Director. So I'm a mama and an activist. And I'll leave it there.
All right, Miss Devonna.
Devonna, mother of three. I have a college age, middle school, and high school. I wear several hats, but I often refer to myself as a community member, and the lens in which I approach many things in life is through my lens as a mother. And so,
Okay.
here I is.
And we, of course, are all mothers. I have 4 heartbeats. One of the reasons that I started using the word heartbeats is because they're not all my biological children, even though I recognize them all as my children. So I have 4, a 22-year-old, a soon-to-be 21-year-old, a soon-to-be 20-year-old, and a soon-to-be 17-year-old, 3 boys and 1 girl. And then, Devonna, how many children do you have?
So I have 3. My oldest is my daughter, just turned 20. My middle baby is my second girl. She's 14. And then my youngest is my son, and he's 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love that you call them your heartbeats, because I got to add one more heartbeat too for me. And that's my, I hate to call him my step, but he is my son's father's child, who I affectionately call my son. He's 32, male, he's an adult. So that's my heartbeat too. So thank you for that word. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those are my heartbeats. I mean, like,
Yeah, I
really,
like that.
everything going on as a mom, like, there's this level of frustration and pride. You know, frustration and pride, because the frustration is because, you know, we've always known as Black moms that this was happening in the world, and that we had to prepare our children, and we had to pray over our children for this specifically, you know, amongst other things. Pride because our youth is showing up, man. Our youth is showing up right now. So there's that part of it too. So let's get started. Y'all. I didn't memorize the question, so when y'all look back.
Can I ask something?
Oh, absolutely. Go for it. What's up?
Okay, so I mean, just as you share that, so I reflect back on many images and old videos that I've seen, and our youth has always showed up. And even though many of our youth that showed up back in the day that were getting hosed and dogs sicked on them, and they were walking out of their schools to be a part of the uprising, even though those folks are old enough to be my grandmother and mom and so on and so forth. Like, I even feel like when I watch and see those images, I'm just as proud of our babies back then as I am of the youth that are rising up now. So it's actually always been, right, part of our fight. That's is that right. We've always had youth leading courageously, actually. And so I just wanted to add that that perspective as well.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. I mean, like, my grandmother was 98 when she passed, and her mother was born on the tail end of slavery, like literally, right? Like,
Oh.
you know, with my grandmother being born in 1921. And so the stories that my grandmother would tell me about what her mother went through and her siblings and her like literally living through every single thing we've heard about in the history books and all the stuff we ain't heard about. My grandmother was the one who told me about Rosewood and Tulsa, you know, and Black Wall Street, like this whole movement that I never would have learned about in the history book. So I'm just really grateful to come from, I feel like we come from, especially as Black women, as Black mothers, we come from this long line of spirited, resilient women. Like our ancestors, like we're rooted in resilience. Like I don't think that we know any other way to be. And I do think that we have to walk into it and claim it, because everybody has it within them, but everybody don't claim it and everybody don't walk in that space. But I think for those of us who have chosen to walk in that space and be resilient and walk the walk of resilience and be able to like give it to our children, it's a dope thing. It's a tiring thing. Yeah, it is. All right, so I got the first question for y'all. I'm gonna have y'all weigh in first, and then I'll make my point. So, okay, so when you rise in the morning and you lay down at night, what stays on your mind with everything going on? So either one of y'all can choose to go first.
You ready for that one, Felicia? If not, I can take it. I mean,
I'll go next.
Yeah, I'm gonna start as simple as I can. I mean, I think one of the most four things on my mind when I rise, outside of being like, thank you, God, for letting me open these eyes of mine and halfway see, is I hope I don't mess it up today. And one of the things that I'm thinking about when I lay my head down, as I think about what I'm thankful for, getting through the day, traveling grace, all those good things, is that what did I mess up today, right? And so as a mother, this, you know, it's not easy. And from the time that we open our eyes until the time we shut them, we're constantly thinking about, you know, what they're doing, how they're doing. Did I talk too crazy to them before I put them out my car in the morning? Did I give them some encouragement, you know, encouraging words? Did I check myself and did I apologize when I misspoke or accused them of doing something that they didn't do, or just took something out on them that didn't have nothing to do with them, right? And so I think that's one of the foremost things is, you know, how can I not mess up today? And what did I mess up when I shut it all down at the end of the night? And a whole lot else goes on between that, but those are two of the, to keep it as simple as possible.
What about Felicia?
You know, I think there's a couple of things. I can't deny the duality of who I am. So, you know, I'm a mama, and I think about that first. And just like you, Devonna, I'm almost certain that I mess up throughout the day. And mostly when I'm thinking, I mess up because I feel like I carry the fear of what can happen to my son. That's with me all day, all night. And it comes out in very hard ways with my son. Like, I'm like, you got to do this, because if you don't do this, they're going to get you in this way. And if you don't do that, they're going to get you in another way. And then I also, I think about, one is, what do I need to do and be to prepare him as a man? And I'm a single mom, don't have a man in the house. So we do have men in our life, but I see him every day, all day. So I think about what do I need to do to help him be who he needs to be in this world. The second thing is, as an activist, as a community leader, I think about what do I need to do to make this world better? Am I doing enough? Is this going to really result in a better place for my son? And oftentimes that brings with it some heaviness in the morning and heaviness at night when I go to bed. And obviously the moment that we're living in, it's like, man, you know, and everybody's saying we've been doing this forever. And sometimes it feels like, yeah, we've been doing this forever. And is it enough? Is it enough to make a difference? So those are the things. I mean, I think about all of that, because it almost like I can't approach my son in, you know, in a way that doesn't have fear attached to it. And I can't raise him without fear. I you know, and I don't know how that shows up with me as a mama. It's definitely I make mistakes from that. I will tell you that, because half the time I'm cussing him out to make sure he do what he's supposed to do. So and stay safe, you know.
I think one of the things that you said, that we can't raise them without fear.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, oh, you know, that's so crazy because you don't want your kids to walk around being afraid of everything. But I think that that certain level of fear that we instill in them about this world is actually a safety measure.
Yeah.
So when I rise in the morning and when I go to bed at night, you know, my mind is all over the place. My oldest lives in Arizona. She just got her first apartment. And I think about her as a young woman, you know, being in, I mean, yeah, she has family out there. But I just think about her being a young woman with everything going on. Could they bust into her apartment like Breonna Taylor? Could she be a Breonna Taylor? Could she? And you know, it's like, I know if she was here, it doesn't change it, because then we all would be Breonna Taylor. But it's just something about being a mom that I'm like, yeah, but if a Breonna Taylor happened, I would gladly step in front of whatever bullet or cover her body.
Right.
You know, then I think about my 21-year-old who goes to college, and she's in San Francisco, and that's my activist, y'all. Like, she helped to plan the peaceful protest that took place in Upland last Friday, where they had almost like 800 youth, right? And so she's an activist. And then I'm worried about her. Like, did I instill enough fear in her to proceed with caution? Still do what you're gonna do, but you looking to your left and to your right, like, I want to make sure of that, right? And then my 20-year-old that's here, you know, I worry about her because she doesn't have any Black friends. You know, and so I worry that when she's out with them, are they gonna protect her Black body?
Yeah.
Do they really understand what it means to have a Black friend? And when they're out, that my child would be the target of some things that's going on, especially in the day that we live in, would they protect her Black body? And then with my son, well, he's a boy, and I think before I go to bed and when I wake up in the morning, how much fear, AKA safety precautions, that's what I like to call the fear, am I instilling in him as he's maneuvering throughout the Inland Empire in an area where he's openly shared, where the police follow him, when he literally leaves Upland High School, walks across Foothill Boulevard to get lunch.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, that literally, like, I don't think we can get away from that as moms. Like, I think it's just, you know, and I think it's a myth for folks to be like, oh, you instilling fear in your kid. Well, I mean, you know, okay, I call it safety precautions.
Well, I mean, whatever it might be called. I remember being at a conference and somebody shared that a white colleague, or maybe it was another attendee, asked her, why is it that Black moms don't love their children the same way that white women do? And so she had to have a conversation with her about that, actually how hard we have to love and how it looks maybe to somebody on the outside who doesn't have to worry about the same things that we have to worry about. So being a mom in itself is already a lot. It's already a lot being a mother. And then when you are a Black woman, because even having a Black child is still different for a Black woman than it might be for a white woman or a Latino woman, right? So then we have all these layers to, you know, to all of this, right? And so, but even for somebody on the outside to interpret the way we love our babies as not being equal or equivalent to the way they love their children is alarming. And I think it also just takes the whole aspect of them, or of those who sometimes view us as less than human, as if, because I don't think they would have asked somebody else who may parent differently and culturally do things differently, would the question have been, why do you love your baby more? Because you guys do this, that, and the other culturally. But because it was a conversation between a Black woman and a white woman, it was, why do we love our babies less?
Less. Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Oh, that's so crazy. Like, what do you mean less? Why? Because, I mean, I ain't even gonna lie. My son rushed track and recently, I mean, you know, anybody who has a kid in sports, you know that that's like a eat, sleep, and breathe type of situation. And I plan my whole schedule with my clients around my sons, you know, just like I did with the other kids. And so, you know, he popped off out the mouth at a track meet, and I had to let him know in front of everybody, that is not how you speak to me. And a lot of the moms were looking, and I was just like, does that not mean I don't love him, or does that mean that I'm letting him know, under no circumstance, that's my barrier, not even a boundary. A barrier is something that's non-negotiable. It is non-negotiable for you to speak to me in that way, not only publicly, but privately, just period. And so, some folks had some comments to make, and I was like, really? Because like, how do you think that I don't love him when it's 3 o'clock on a work day and I'm here?
That's right. That's right.
And I'm self-employed, so I don't get no sick pay. So if I don't work, I don't eat. And to doubt that because I said something to him and I corrected him in a way that you didn't find comfortable for you, to doubt my love for him.
Yeah.
But
That's
then
wild.
also acknowledging that it's not just as a mother and as a woman, I have these expectations on how you address me and vice versa, and how I address you. But the other aspect of that is you don't have the luxury of having outbursts like this as a Black young man in public, because when a white boy do it, how he get reprimanded is going to look totally different if he even is reprimanded. And so I remember my nephew having an outburst in his frustration with my sister, and I was on my way out the door going home after a long day. I had to come back in and we had to have a conversation. Let me tell you now why this won't work. It's disrespectful to your mama, right? But also, young man, because you have an outburst like this already, because you a Black young man, is going to be perceived differently. It's not safe for you. So one thing is the level of respect you have for your mother, but then the other thing is you don't even have the luxury to have an outburst, whether you're mentally ill, whether you high off of something, or you enjoying the music you got playing in your head, whatever the case may be. You can't operate the same in society, not in this country.
Yeah.
You can't jog in the neighborhood.
No.
You can't sleep in your bed. No,
you can't sleep in your bed. And I think about that all the time with my son, because he's a big guy, he's a football player, and even and I'm always telling him about how to, guard himself, his body. It's almost like, and I feel bad that I have to tell him that because of the way you look, you're already intimidating. And I remember, he had just a year ago, he had a little fender bender. And my son happens to be a gentle giant, everybody who knows him. But, I just remember him, he got into a little fender bender. They called the police. They sent 4 police officers to the site. My son was terrified, and he knew, because I've been telling him forever, they're going to look at you different. They're going to come at you whether you're aggressive or not. They're going to see you as that. And so he was terrified in a car and would not get out until I came, because he knew that just his size alone could turn this whole situation into something different. And it's really, I just hate that we have to train our boys that way and think about how they're perceived, whether they are a threat or not, they're perceived as one.
Right.
It's heartbreaking.
Right. Because the thing is that, like,
yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what. Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but I'm like, I cry when I'm happy, when I'm frustrated, when I'm angry. And like, I'm literally sitting here trying not to cry, because I think about, like, when I used to work in the group homes, and I used to think about like those boys, specifically the Black and brown boys, but the Black boys tended to kind of gravitate towards me more because I looked like a big sister or a mom. But even with the brown boys, they would just, it was different. Sometimes we had to educate the staff, the non-Black and brown staff, on how to treat these boys and talk to these boys. And it's just so crazy. But then, even the POs, the parole officers, probation officers that would come in there, I would see the difference, and I would call them out on it. I'd be like, really? So you're going to let the white boy go home to visit his family, and he violated. He violated the rules here. But he get to go home to his family, but you're not letting the Black or the brown boy go home because he violated for the same exact thing.
That's right.
What is your reason? Oh, because I don't know. They would always give me some BS reason. At the end of the day, I was like, yeah, I'm going to just have to call your supervisor. And I would just call him racist. I was like, because you're being racist. Like, you can't even give me a valid reason. And I would literally call supervisor and be like, so such and such gets to go home for this violation, and such ain't getting ready to go home for his violation. I'm gonna need you to tell me what the difference is. Oh, ain't no difference? Oh, okay. I'm gonna need you to work with your officer.
Indeed. Wow.
They sent 4 officers for your son, and he was the one.
4 officers, yeah, and he refused to get out the car, and rightfully so, because we were in Upland, and like I said, there wasn't barely a nick on the car, but but that's what it turned into. And again, he knows enough to know and have seen it enough, unfortunately, in all the videos and all the history of law enforcement and Black men. Let me not move until my mama come. But that means something for me too. Like, I'm like, my son is 17. He's a senior, and for since he's been a little boy, I've been saying, you gotta, you grew up, gotta get out the house. You're gonna have to leave and go away to school. Just as part of his growth and development. And right now, I feel like I've had to make him a prisoner because I'm so afraid. And how do I, we've got to still be able to let them go. He's got to be able to go somehow. But I am terrified. And somehow, how do we mother when there is terror? Like, this is terrorism in every way. This is terrorism to me.
Yeah.
And I'm praying through it. I'm praying through it, but I'm being real about the fact that I am terrorized of him leaving and going to places and spaces where I know that there is, white supremacy and folks who are really attacking Black bodies in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your take on it, Devonna? They sent 4. They sent 4 for her son.
Well, I mean, I just think about just listening to you, but even what I know, even without us just having this conversation, like all of the things that it cost us.
Yeah.
Right. All of the things it cost our babies. I remember the first conversation I had with Keon, and he's 13 now, and he won't be as big of a gentle giant as Felicia's baby, but he's going to be a nice, tall, solid kid himself, young man. And at 7, telling him, son, now what cops is going to pull the 7-year-old up? No, none, because he ain't driving no car. He ain't out without supervision by somebody I trust, right? But even having to feel that sense of, son, if and when, this is how I need you to respond. And so it cost us a lot thank you, Brie. It cost us a lot to be mothers, to be Black mothers of Black children in the United States of America. And it's not even just here, it's a lot of places that we're under attack. But it cost us a lot emotionally. It cost us, if you think about the mom who stays up worried about her baby because they're out and it's not even curfew time yet, or just wanting to make sure that they get home safely. Like, again, we have so many other layers on top of that. Once you just get beyond the basic layer of I'm mom waiting for my baby to get in the house safely,
right,
then you add all the other dynamics, and we're not guaranteed that once they get in the house that they still won't be terrorized in our own homes.
Right.
Oh yeah. And
then you add the layer of, we have fallen victim time and time again to the system, and then there's no justice on the other end of that as well. Right. So then that's enough. So when listening to this and just things that I know, it costs us way, 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 way too much, and it shows up in our bodies. Like, the things that we don't know are changing on a very microscopic level in our body. Just being a Black woman in this country, and even if you're a mother or if you're a woman without babies, you were just the auntie mama and didn't even have your own children that you birthed, or if you just somebody. I was in a barbershop and this young man was in there with his son. This was the last haircut I got. Lord, I remember. Seems like it was 3 years ago.
I know, huh?
It was right before COVID-19, and he talked about how comforting it was when he's on the street and he sees a Black grandma. So she ain't got to be no grandma. He don't even know. But just to see an older Black woman, it brings a sense of comfort to him to know that there's somebody in the midst, that if something go down, he got somebody. I'm like, Jesus, You know, it took my breath away hearing that young man describe what it meant to him to see what he said was a grandma on the street. Yeah, even if he didn't know her, he knew that she was there for him if something was to go down. It cost us a lot. It cost a whole lot. Along with all the joy and memories and beautiful things about being a mom, we also carry a whole lot with being mothers, Black mothers of Black babies in this country.
Right.
I hate the conversations I gotta have with my son sometimes. I also think I leave the house and consciously lock the door, and I leave him here, but I lock the door knowing the worry that I have no idea who's gonna come in on him today. I hate that I have to, I remember my son was telling, they do how they do the active shooter drills.
Yeah.
And at school, and my son came to me and said, "Oh, Mom, if they come, then I'm gonna, if an active shooter is in the class, we're gonna tackle him and take his gun." And I hated. I had to stop and say, "No, baby, I said, look, everybody knows you can't take the gun and do nothing." So he's like, "What you mean, Mom?" He's like, "What do you mean?" He says, so you just want me to die? I said, "Babe," I said, "I'm sorry to tell you." I said, "You're gonna die anyway. Because if you take down the active shooter, they gonna think it was you and come in and shoot you anyway." I mean, he's like, "I can't even be a hero." No, you can't be a hero. I hate the fact that I had to kill his dream of and the fantasy of protecting his classmate in an active shooter drill, because the reality is that the minute they walk in, and if you are anywhere near a gun, and you don't have to be near a gun, that you will be shot dead. So you're gonna die anyway.
Right.
And the fact that some of them, it's almost like the beauty in him thinking that he can even be the hero and not recognizing, right? But because there's beauty in that. That means that
there's beauty in that.
Innocent, right? That he feels like I can save the day if there's an opportunity to. But I was in Baltimore 2 years ago at a conference, and one of the young sisters out of the Florida shooting came, and she did like one of the opening keynotes. And she, I don't know, she's maybe 16, 17 years old. And she talked about what it was like walking out of school with all of the police with their guns, because they didn't yet know what had a good sense of all. And she said how the Black kids knew they had to keep their hands in the air, whereas the other kids was reaching for their phones, texting, maybe even recording, but they knew they could not bust one move in the wrong way because they was Black kids with officers with their guns pulled, right? And I was like, even as a child, to have that sense of, I know I can't even attempt to reach for nothing, where some of my other classmates can't.
That's right.
Because they don't even have this fear that the police are there to protect them. We don't often know.
Right.
That's right.
If they're there for us or if they're there against us. So
that's right. Yeah.
Right. So I want to bring up something that I know that we hadn't so this whole idea of defund the police, and everybody's not really understanding. I mean, clearly we don't mean to not have any cops at all, but they've been defunding education. They've been defunding state, county, federal programs that help to distribute resources, right, to the community. And so this whole idea behind defunding. And so what I want us to touch on is this idea that resources are just not available. Like, we happen to be in positions where we can get our children to the resource, even if we can't afford it. We know somebody who knows somebody who can help obtain some type of resource. But they shouldn't have to be us. I shouldn't have to be a therapist who's fortunate enough to be able to run a business in Upland, who has a husband who works for UPS, and so we can afford certain resources, or we're connected to certain people.
Right.
Felicia, right? They shouldn't have to be you, Devonna, who's connected, right? Like, that shouldn't have to be the case, but it is, because we don't get the resources. And so not only do we have to parent out of fear, but they talking about defunding. We've been not getting the funding.
Well, I want to say this. I mean, I want to say, and I don't know, so forgive me if I've cut you short of asking your question completely, but I want you to know that there are some people saying to totally defund, like get rid of police. I think it's important to acknowledge that there's a wide gamut of what that means. That means reduce their budget and, reallocate those funds in other places that can be more effective and be creative around how we do this whole thing, especially in the school districts, right? And then there's those people who are saying, we can do something else. Is there another way that we can provide a sense of safety without having this overarching system that has not provided justice across the board to all people in this country, right? And so
right.
I just wanted to stop and acknowledge that there are some people saying get rid of all of them, every last one of them, good, bad, and indifferent. And then there's people also saying that we're not saying get rid of them, but what we are saying is that we need to create a system that is going to be more effective and more
Right.
and really serve in a way that is going to be to protect and not to harm. Too often we're having these situations where they're coming and inflicting harm, not just on the person that they physically lay hands on or put a bullet in or put a knee on their neck, but also the babies in our communities that grow to despise law enforcement because they have seen with their own eyes at a very young age, before they're even able to fully articulate themselves, they have seen their community violated time and time again, right? And so I think we have to remember that people are asking for a lot of things. So there's both ends of the spectrum and everything in between. I'm not saying that's my personal view, but I did want to just acknowledge that there is a whole lot that—
No, absolutely. I think that I mean, truth be told, like, at the end of the day, I can't say that I would call 911 if my family was in trouble.
I will. That's what I always say too. Like, that's the first, and I want you to act right when you get here too, because I'm calling you to de-escalate a situation, right? But I also have had exposure to law enforcement that has been equally as good, right? And so, but when we talk about how that's my experience personally, right? That's not all of our experience. And that has most definitely not been all of our community's experience, for sure.
I had not had good experiences with the police as a child, as a victim of police brutality at 17 years old. I don't feel safe. And that's from personal experience. And that's why I said I can't say that I would call the police if I was in trouble. Like, if I can't de-escalate the situation, that would have to be my last resort, because I've been violated as a child by the cops. And even when I've been pulled over, I'm not saying I drive the fanciest car, but I drive an Audi Q7 utility vehicle. And I've gotten pulled over and asked, like, what do I do for a living? Because, I had on like a baseball cap and like a t-shirt because I was just running to pick my kids up. What do you do for a living? Is this your car? I mean, whose name is on the registration that matches the driver's license, bro? I mean, like that kind of stuff. Like, so I can't drive an Audi? I'm confused. So, and I was like, and he asking me questions, and I was like, I don't need to answer any of your questions. My registration and my driver's license match up. If you run me, you'll see that there's nothing on me. I will not be answering your questions. And it's like, so, I mean, there's this whole, like,
there's a distrust, justifiably so. There is a distrust. And we have to honor that.
Yeah.
And we have to honor that. And just because everybody hasn't had the same experience per se, like, that doesn't mean that, like, for some people to say, like, that's not necessary. Like, what are we, just because it hasn't been your story doesn't mean it's not a lot of people's story. And everybody's not even able to articulate and advocate in a way where you are to say, listen, all this stuff line up and match what and matter of fact, let me have the sergeant on duty's number, and let me have your, right? There's some communities where they know that from the curb to the prison, everybody's against them. They feel like there's no fighting them. And that's why it takes, okay, I'm gonna be quiet. Go ahead, Felicia, and answer the question.
No, I mean, I feel you. I mean, on the trust issue, I have the same issues. I have had my car burglarized. I have been victimized. I will not call the police. And I hate that I have to feel that way because I actually feel like because the victim always, when we're Black, the victim becomes a suspect.
Yep.
Even when, like, again, and I've seen it the same way where, I get, somebody hit me. I feel like we have a bunch of accidents, but somebody hit and run. And I was in Torrance. No, I was in Manhattan Beach. And I was coming from a dinner in Manhattan Beach, and somebody backed into me. And, they knocked my bumper off. I was good to go, but there were some do-gooder citizens in Manhattan Beach that actually wanted some excitement in their life. So they decided to call the police. again, 4 police came, 4 or 5 police came. And as I'm sitting there, I started getting interrogated by the police. I'm like, look,
And your
my bumper is on the ground.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how am I getting interrogated? Let me see your license. Let me see your registration. Why were you here? What were you doing here? Look, I didn't even ask to call you. They called you. I'm good to go. We gonna tie up my bumper to my car and I'm gonna keep going. But there is a distrust, and I do understand, you know, the what that means in schools. And I do think that we have and this is me speaking personally, I think we've over invested in criminalizing our babies in school.
I agree.
I think there are always other ways. And I think we have to go back to what those other ways were. And I do think, you know, giving children who have behavior challenges access to the kind of support they need. And sometimes kids just need to be able to do what kids do and not fear that they're going to be criminalized because they're just doing kid stuff. You know, we could be doing, you know, we don't have enough people of color on our campuses that love our babies and pour into them. I think, you know, again, my son is an athlete. The coaches can do more in terms of getting the boys some act right than the police officers, to me, because they actually have and demonstrate a level of care. So, you know, so I know the movements are valid to say we need to reevaluate what we're spending our money on, because is the product safer schools? So in our first mind, and I've polled folks, talked to folks, the first thing is, you know, what about school shootings? Well, the school shootings still happen. You know, they kind of still happened. However, in school shootings, they say that a lot of the shooters have had suicidal tendencies already. So how are we actually getting them counseling and support and resources if we know there's some issues that's starting to emerge? So all those things that come up that I think we need to just reevaluate that. And I think the push to defund is a push to have a deeper conversation around what do we do about safety in schools? What do we do about dealing with behavior and discipline matters in a different way?
And I think the whole notion that any one professional field needs to be all things for all situations, right? Right. And so kind of like that's part of this whole thing is like, well, when did they become everybody? When did their role and their place and position on campuses become bigger than the needs that the children have, right? And so again, especially if their presence isn't presenting, I'm here to protect you versus I'm here to police you, right? And I think that that's another another piece of that conversation that has to be had. And I would say, even though I always tell people, listen, something go down, that's the first piece. I don't give a damn. That's the first person I'm calling. The first number I'm calling is 911. But I also know that's when I feel like I need somebody to come to my aid. There has been countless times where I've intentionally not called in some situations where I should have, because I was afraid of what the end result was going to be for the other person. So if there was a situation that did not look safe for me or my children, and whether it was a mental illness issue or if it was a substance abuse issue, but my fear was more for that person and what would happen to them when the police showed up if they were not equipped to deal with this person that might have been having a mental illness episode, or was, coming down off of a high or whatever. And so, and then that's the other thing, like, we don't need police to be everything. We just need them to do whatever we recreate them to do, whatever that is, either going back to some old stuff, but also recreating some new things to make it, if we do decide to keep them around, to make it a much more community thing.
Redefine their role. We can reimagine, redefine their role. And I do think that there are some promising good things that are happening in places with law enforcement. I'm not saying that and I don't want to minimize those things that are happening, but we also have to realize that there is a lot of policing the students and not actually protecting. And how do we make sure that we're protecting and not policing them?
Right. I think one of the components I want to add to this is that So I look at it both as a mom and as a therapist, right? So I have a lot of people come to me who are on the force, who, you know, they don't want their job to know they're struggling with things. So I've had quite a few cops throughout the, you know, years of my career to work with. And the fact that they're not required, most of them come because the person they're married to is like, I'm about to divorce you if you don't go work on this stuff because you bring it home. But the fact that the cops are not forced to at least do quarterly mental health checkups, like, what do you mean you only need to come have an evaluation prior to being hired, but yet, or if you're a part of some type of, you know, if you discharge your firearm, like that's the only time that you need to come and sit down on somebody's couch. So I think about that even as a mom, right? I think about the fact that, you know, there's so many elements that go on with just raising a kid, but specifically we're raising a Black child, girl or a boy, that you can't ignore. Like you can't ignore. And the fact that a lot of the cops out here act like we're afraid for no reason. I've literally had cops, I get to the point now, if I get pulled over, I immediately pick up the phone. I let them know I'm calling my mother or my husband. Matter of fact, as soon as they pull me over, before they get to my window, I've already called my mother or my husband or somebody and put them on speaker before they even, and I let them know, hey, I have somebody on the phone because I don't feel safe. I've had a cop say, well, I'm the police. You know, I said, well, you're a stranger.
As if that's supposed to mean something.
And that's what I told myself.
Because you're the police, you have some act right, but we know history will tell us different.
And so how do I tell my kids who are driving, you know, what to do? Like, truth be told, my son will be 17 in September, and my husband was like, I'm cool with him not driving. We'll drive him everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, but we had our licenses in high school. And he's like, yeah, but, you know,
my from the drive.
Son.
I know the feeling.
This is my Black son. He's like, as much as I'm worried about the girls, he said, I'm way more worried about Jalen driving, you know, because he goes to school in Upland. We live in Rancho. And I mean, let's not act like, look, I grew up out here. I've been here since I was 14 years old. Yeah. We ain't the apple of the eye in this in this area. And for anybody who is going to watch this, who wants to be like, oh, that's not true, I'm gonna need you to step into my shoes and look at it through my perspective and through the perspective of so many other people that I know. I think that's one of the things that, as a Black mother, like, our perspective don't look like nobody else's.
And then,
I'm sorry, go on, Felicia.
No, I was gonna say, because then it feels like we're coddling our boys, but we know that there is the fear of them driving. Oh, I feel you on that. Mine is 17 and is anxious to get a license, going, and he has a permit, but you know, I worry. I do worry. I worry for several reasons. And it's like, you got to worry about being profiled, but also being a target if he drives in certain neighborhoods. So it's like, I grew up in South LA and came to this area a couple years ago, obviously like everybody else, thinking, going to a better school, trying to go to a neighborhood that I thought was safe. And I have more concerns about him being accosted by the police now than I actually thought I would have had in LA. I mean, I worried about gang as we all do gang stuff, and in gang shootings, I had to worry about the colors and making sure he didn't wear red or making sure he didn't wear blue, or was conscious of that kind of situation. Now it's like, are they gonna kill you out here? No, you can't take off this color. You can't take off it's like, you just, like, what do we do now?
What do we do now? Right.
I would say what's important though is that you're conscious of it, because I think, and I don't speak from this perspective, I don't speak from experience. I'm speaking from other things that I hear other Black moms say about particular areas. So like if they relocated to a place that's not familiar or similar to where they grew up, ideally to, you know, provide something different, a much slower pace, things like that, better, what they think I'm saying in parentheses, better school system and stuff, but they might not be exposed to some things that mom and dad may have been exposed to growing up. But then there's this whole other level about being the only Black child or being one of few in a predominantly white area, right? And then the things, the trauma that happens in those places, right? And I don't know if everybody's always conscious of that, where you might be trying to shift from one thing and trying to create something much more safer, that in some ways it could be safer, but emotionally and mentally what is happening, right? And so I just say that to say, at least you're aware of that, Felicia. Like, it's not like you was just like, oh, we out of the city, so things is just smoother now, but you're very conscious of what's going on at the schoolhouse, what he has to deal with teachers that don't look like him, that don't, that their only exposure to our children has, or to our people or our culture, is being something on TV prior to coming and teaching in our community. And
that was a culture shock for him. He coming here was different. So, you know, we grew up in a mostly Latino Black community. All of his early schooling was in a Black Christian school. He didn't even go to school with any other non-Black folks until he got to middle school and high school. And then he got to go to school with white people for the first time when we came here, which was I didn't understand the degree to which that would be such a transition, like a major significant transition for him, and a challenge culturally, socially, emotionally. He struggled. He struggled that year being, in our neighborhood school, and then but found community when he went back when he went to Eisenhower. And I appreciate that, and because he struggled. He really, really struggled. He saw the difference. He heard the racist comments. He felt all of that.
Right.
And how Black folks were tokenized in the school. And, he felt all of that.
Yeah.
It was challenging.
And it's crazy because, like I said, I grew up out here, right? So my son was at Los Osos, and two of my girls went to Los Osos, right? I don't mind shouting out the schools and saying,
okay, yes, good.
I say it and the reason I say it, because I grew up out here, and a lot of these principals and these teachers, I know them.
Yeah.
And how dare y'all not do better? Like, how dare y'all see, like when I was at Altaloma, like the Black kids, we banded together. Like they acted like they were okay with us being there, but there would be like race wars, riots, literally, where the white kids would start stuff with the Black kids, and the Tongan and the Tongan kids, they would try to like defend us. They would defend us. They would literally stand in front of us and let the white kids know you can't touch them.
That's right.
Like it was like that. And it's so like that is what it was like in 1995 at Altaloma High School.
Wow.
It was like, and so for the fact for my daughters to be at Los Osos, and for one of my daughters shared when we did the live last week, she shared that, the word nigger was sprayed on the concrete, and kids was walking around in Confederate flags. And shame on you, Los Osos principal, for not putting policy in place, and you a Black man.
They do.
Now somebody go and tell them that, because I don't care.
They do that. That's real.
Like, how you go? Come on.
In the school. Yeah.
Oh, I just
feel that is very true.
That is the truth.
That was.
Well, I would say that this is also where community, because we're there, right? We're not we're not in that area. So this is also where it requires community to, and so I don't speak again from my personal experience, because I'm not in nobody's education system, hierarchy of nothing, right? But when we do have people in position, how do we hold them accountable, as well as come stand with them when changes and things have to be made, especially when they're the only one in those spaces, right? And so, not speaking specifically to that situation, because I wasn't a parent there and all of that, but what I'm saying is this is also a charge for us as community to know when we need to step in and say, okay, yes, there's that one person in position that looks like us, but how can we also hold him accountable, her accountable, them accountable, but also stand in support with them as well, so it doesn't seem like it's this one person trying to create all these shifts, because then that means that one person might be out of there real quick, right?
And unfortunately, they become a target when they actually try to stand up for black
And they're the
students,
only ones.
unfortunately. Always.
Right.
Always.
And then they get afraid and they want to hold on
Yes,
to
then
their
they
power.
get afraid.
But I've
Yeah.
had some interactions with him personally, and I'm gonna need him to do better.
Okay. I hear you. I hear you.
I'm just being real. Like I feel like at this point, my kids don't go there. None of our kids go. I feel like at this point, and it's not. And if he needs help with creating change and all of these things, then come to the community, because we here. Say something, and we'll stand with you, my brother. But you cannot let our children be targets.
Yeah. And there's some deep emotional things going on with the kids over there. I mean, that was the case with my son. I did not. He was a completely different child when he left, and I did not realize how burdened he was being in that environment, and how toxic it was for him until we left. And I'm so grateful that we left. Yeah. And again, you think you're making the right decision.
Right. And again, it's not to like blast people to make them feel bad. It's to say, look, we're here. And, I'm telling you what it's looking like to the community. And we're here. Right. And utilize us. But if you continue to choose not to utilize the resources for the community to stand with you, then you become a part of the problem.
That's right. Yeah, I hear you.
Like you thinking a whole lot, Devonna.
No,
I'm I'm always thinking a whole lot. That's a problem. That's why I don't go to sleep so well at night sometimes. No, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I value what you're saying, and I think that you're not wrong for feeling the way you feel. But I think also I'm also just thinking about how else that can better be, how that can be better for our students that are going through their even this upcoming school year, right? Like, so I mean, yeah, I was just thinking about, because ultimately I don't think people who are there for a reason, and so we can't pretend like our babies aren't there and our babies aren't hurting and they don't feel a certain type of way. But I just know, so I was just thinking about anytime anybody comes to me and it's like, if we only do this, and I'll be like, okay, and what? And then give me something else, right? Because there's so many, it's multifaceted, right? It's so many, because I know the issue existed before he got there. Hopefully it can be addressed while he's there. But it's not even just there, right? It's in a lot of our community.
Several places. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the country, right? It's the systems that have been built. That were not for us. And so as a mother, and I'm not that I don't have all this stuff right as a mama, number one. My kids they was telling me last night, I ain't even your favorite. That one your favorite. And the other one was like, in some days you like that one better than you like the other two. I'm like, geez, so they don't have a problem telling me I don't get it right. But even as a parent that's involved, like, I don't know how to make all of this stuff better, but why it's important that I'm involved, especially in the public education, is because so many of our babies are there and they don't have an option to be homeschooled. They don't have an option to go do all black something somewhere else. Like that's what they have, right? And until we build something that's better and is going to work for them in such a way, then we have to be advocating for our babies, because somebody said it at one of the parent meetings before, like, in the meantime, we're losing babies that have been in the system for 12, 13 years and things have not gotten better for them. And so we gotta, we just have to figure out how to make things better for these babies.
Yeah.
Right. The last question I wanted to hit, go on, Felicia, and then I'll hit
No, go ahead. The
last question, this has been the running theme. Tori started this when we did the first one with me and my son, about raising free Black children. Right. And so, free Black children, like, even though we know that there's a sense of fear, even though we know there's a level of safety precautions, fears, or whatever that we have to instill with them, but like, how do we really raise free Black children where they are free to feel, free to express, free to move in one space and in another space, whether it's a white space or an all Black space? Like, how do we raise free Black children?
How do we raise free Black children?
almost started to you know, I don't even know where you're going with that, Wendy, and I don't know where I'm supposed to go with it either. But I'm like, what comes to mind right away is like, I don't have the luxury of raising free Black children, because to me, to be able to do that would mean that this country do not see them and want to inflict harm on them, and do not want to take all of the good that we carry in, or I'm gonna say them, right? All of the good that our Black babies have, our swag, our flavor, our style, our intellect, our creativeness, all of that stuff that just you know, is vibrating all through our beings, and take it and try to make it their own, while they tell us it's ugly on us, while they tell our Black baby girls that their lips are too full, and if your skin ain't this toned, and if your hair ain't this way, and if you don't wear it, all of that stuff, right? Like, so I don't know. I'm listening to y'all. How do y'all raise a free Black baby? Because I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that while I'm mothering, because it's not safe enough for them, for me to allow them to be free. Joy is important, and I think it's important that they have that, because joy is something that can remain throughout all kind of trials and tribulations in life. But free, I don't know. Wendy, Felicia, tell me how y'all doing that, so maybe y'all can learn.
Look, this one stopped me. I was searching far and wide trying to understand how they gonna be free. You know what I mean? I'm hopeful, obviously, that we can create a world in which they can be free. But I do think that, it's how do we think about what's happening externally, and also how are we nurturing something in them internally. And that, I think, is the charge and the challenge of mothering and or parenting, is how do we instill that reassurance in their value, despite what people think, that they can be self-determined, that they can, that they can pursue their goals and dreams, hopefully unencumbered and unhindered, but and know that they still have to have that hope. And obviously we have our faith and our belief in God that, that we will be protected, even when things happen. There's a part of me that still has to have some sense of hope there, while the reality is that our children still, and we are not free. I think we have some senses, we're not enslaved, but we are still living under conditions where we are not completely liberated. And I think we are choosing to fight for our ultimate liberation and for Black liberation. But that's a journey. So I don't know if I'm answering this question. I'm trying to be hopeful in it, and hoping that, there's a space where our children can at least, feel a sense of self-determination and purpose, while they're also living under conditions that we know are not the most, the most ideal. So I'm not quite sure how other folks have answered that, because I don't know if we can say that they're free.
And I would add to that, even if my babies, my 3 babies that I've carried and nursed at my breast, were able to navigate in this world in such a way that they can experience freedom at its utmost, right? But because some people have that experience where they feel like they've never been oppressed, and that we've overcome all of those things, right? And I cannot tell anybody that their experience have been things that it hasn't been, right? But as long as all the other babies ain't free, then I don't even know how I can feel that you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's I think about this whole COVID-19 stuff. Like, I'm grateful that we're okay, but I still grieve at the same time that there's babies that their safe place is a schoolhouse, right? And they don't get to go there, and they're going home to situations that are not best for them, whether it's physical or verbal or whatever, right? And so even if in this, when my babies are safe, I'm still not cool, because all babies ain't safe, right? And so I guess that's kind of like how I feel about this whole thing about freedom. I'm hopeful, so I'm glad you used that word, Felicia. I remain hopeful, and I always have my underlying joy, but I'm also very ready to fight all the time too. Because I know that
I feel
You
you.
know,
I feel you.
in the spiritual realm as well, more the spiritual than even the physical. But you know, so.
I think I love the two words that you guys
Yeah.
use, hope and joy. They're two of my favorite words. And I've answered this question twice publicly, but I've gone back and forth with, you know, what that really means. And so I think as I'm talking to you guys and you have given me your take on, you know, joy and hope, I think my take on it at this point, right, on this day of June 12, 2020, is that, you know, there's a sense of freedom spiritually that I think is important. I think that to be connected to God, to be connected to our ancestors, to be connected to one another spiritually, like this right here is a spiritual moment between the three of us, right? So this we are free in this, right? There's a freeing of this. But I think when it comes to our children, how do we raise free Black children? I think that technically we cannot in this world, but I think that we don't stop fighting for it. And I think that we consistently remind them of their joy, and we help them build it and carve it out for themselves. And we provide a foundation of contentment for them. We let them feed off of our joy. We feed off of their joy. It becomes like a spiritual exchange between us and our babies. And I think that giving them the hope that giving them the hope that they're not alone in this.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the ways to make sure that their spirit remains free, and to make sure that they continue to be resilient, and that we pass down the spirit of resilience in them, is to make sure that they have hope and they have joy, the spirit of resilience, and the will to fight.
And the will to fight. That's what I was just getting ready to say, because and I think, you know, you lifting our ancestors. Number one, know that we're making them proud.
Indeed.
Somebody has been making comments about certain people being on the front line during these protests, and I'm like, understand, being a Black woman in this country, being intentional about the way we move and we speak to each other as women, as mothers, as community, that puts us on the front line every day. And we're fighting, and our ancestors had a spirit of freedom that they didn't know what it was going to look like, didn't know if they was ever going to see their way out of it, but they fought nonetheless. And I feel like we're fighting for that, you know, the next level of what freedom is. And I pray that, you know, it comes a lot sooner, but I also pray that the generations to come never lose the fight in them, because if everything shifts and changes, it only takes a long enough for us to forget what it was like for things to go back to the way they were. And so I also hope and pray that all the generations that come out of us, all of those that come from our wounds, will continue to have a fight in them, a relationship with Jesus Christ, because, you know, like you said, ultimately, that's what I was talking to my daughter last night about. Yesterday over lunch, yesterday over lunch, we was asking, well, you know, if we have the opportunity to go back to the continent and stay, will we? And I often describe like, this is the worst and the best place to live. I don't know. So I ain't knocking nobody who's going back, right? But I'm like, but the fact that I can worship here freely, where in other places you can't worship Jesus Christ freely without some type of punishment or consequence, right? And so I value that. And that is a level of freedom that we have. But that's also where my fight comes from, because of who my Heavenly Father is and who my ancestors are, you know. No, I didn't answer the question, but
no, I hear you. You know, I'm also hearing some of the brothers who have said enough. And I think when you talk about that fight, and we talk about our fight and our faith, you know, some folks are saying they are willing to go to the limits for their dignity and that fight. And that means, you know, there's also a freedom in that. And when I say this, it may sound extremely radical, But a brother said to me, he said, Felicia, I cannot go right at this point in my life. I cannot leave here without my dignity. And if I'm in a circumstance, I'm going to fight, which means that means I'm consciously willing to die.
My life.
I'm giving my life because I cannot be another Black man who dies without his dignity.
Mm.
And it made me think about, like, when David was called to slay Goliath, he wasn't slaying Goliath metaphorically. He had to, like, you know what I mean? That slingshot had to take him down for real. So I'm like, so freedom, how and our ancestors and our ancestors obviously have had those kinds of radical fights for freedom. And while I pray that we don't have to, that death doesn't have to be our way to ultimately be free, we also know that there is a cost to freedom, and there is some cost, some sacrifices that will ultimately be made. Either we're making them or our babies will make them for the next generation to be free. We know that our ancestors made them for us to have some semblance of the ability to continue to pursue freedom. So that is the moment that we're in, like, and like you had said earlier, I would jump in front of a bullet for my baby. And the fact that we actually have to think about, actually be postured and ready to pursue freedom with that level of commitment is deep. But I also think that God has given us the power to fight, also in all of these spaces. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And prayerfully, we don't have to do it with our bodies like that, but there might come a time when we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I can't thank y'all enough, because I knew I wasn't the only woman, the only mother, the only Black woman and Black mother who felt this way.
Yeah.
That there was this sense of, almost like this sense of urgency.
Yeah.
I think, in our daily capacities, we don't want to always be educating. And so I was like, well, how do we educate the masses without have to educate these one-on-one conversations that get to be frank? And just, we're already overwhelmed emotionally with everything going on, and to have to teach. So thank you guys for being a part of Black and White Spaces, because I think unfortunately we couldn't go live, but I will make sure that I send you guys the link and share it with whoever you think will be blessed from it. If somebody comes to you and they want to learn something, be like, I got something to teach you with.
Right.
But
so the announcement, Wendy, is I'm not having no one-on-one conversations with nobody. I paid my dues. They can freely watch this, but if they want to know, they got to do their own work.
Yeah,
that's right. Watch this video.
And I think it's important too that we acknowledge that even though we're doing this publicly, and it will be public, that that Black women deserve this privacy and space to feel how they feel without being picked apart, and know we all three are being vulnerable with sharing some of how we feel. We're not giving you all of how we feel, because we can't even describe and don't have the words for all of how we feel. So anybody watching this, just be mindful as you seek to want to know more, and with good intentions, to be mindful how you get to know more and who you're pulling from to get that knowledge. Just like we have to do our work as mamas, and we want to do better for our babies, just like we do work and we want to eat better and exercise, so on and so forth. It requires us to do the work. And so I just give that charge to any watching to do that work. Wendy probably cut the recording off on me, and I'm steadily talking like I'm giving somebody.
No, you still there. Hey, because this is the truth. Like, I feel like what we're doing, Black and White Spaces, like I said, it was just this idea I had, and people started responding to it, and I was like, well, I guess we'll do another one and another one. But I feel like Black and White Spaces really is a level of transparency that we're willing to share. Even when we don't always have the words to say, like, there is no answer for how do you raise free Black children other than I said like hope, joy, and spiritual freedom. Like I don't know any other way. So nah, like I can't tell y'all like how grateful I am for your voice and your work and your talent. And just to know y'all ladies, I'm honored to know y'all.
Nice to you.
The work that y'all do and y'all passion, you know, like I said, y'all some dope mamas, and I'm glad to rock with y'all.
Thank you for making the space available for us. And I think it's an intriguing topic, and there's more to come. So you should be ready, because this is there's all kind of stuff we have yet to cover about being black and white spaces.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I hope you will continue to pursue it.
All right, love you ladies.
All right, love you too. Thank you.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.